Hello, welcome to the show. Welcome to In Studio Live, the 64th edition. And it's great to have you all here. And we're looking at details tonight. I hope the sound's okay at the moment because I've changed that introduction setup on my system because, as you can see, the graphics are a little bit different this week. And there's slight possibility that a couple of things might interfere, so hopefully that's okay. But if I do that, even if it was a bit funny, it should be okay now. Right, anyway, enough of my prattling at the start. Welcome everyone. We are looking at details in photography this week. So let's start with my usual weekly plea. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Please like, because that's an easy way of letting YouTube know that this is a show worth watching. Share. Thanks to everyone who has been sharing, and I really appreciate that on there. If you're not already a member of my Facebook group, please join that. There should be a link somewhere down below with the link to the group. That's where we carry on the conversation. And I have a weekly newsletter as well, also linked down below somewhere, so you can sign up for that. It's an interactive show, so please chat along in the live chat. I'll refer to it every so often as we go through. I'll try not to get too distracted by it on there. And basically, if you agree with me, disagree with me, just stick it in the chat and we can talk about these things. And if you've got any questions, put them in there and I'll try and deal with them as we go through. If they're really, really good questions, I might not deal with them this week. I might save them and do a whole show about them on there. So what have we got on tonight's show? Well, as I said, the theme is details. We're going to look at why, as photographers, we shoot details and some of the thought processes behind it to help us find the details and to think more about why we want to do it and encourage ourselves to do it. So I'm going to do part of that live. I'm going to go through some slides on there, but I'm going to play in an on-location video. An on-location case study on how to do it. What it is, some of you may have seen it before, so my apologies if you have. It's the first few minutes of a little video I filmed a couple of years back in Cherbourg, and it's been on my travel channel for a little while, but it just felt appropriate to drop it in tonight. So it's going to be about the first 2/3 of it, and then I'll cut back to the studio because the last bit's just a slideshow, so I'm not going to play that through. But the general talk, I thought the things I was saying on there is what I would say live, so I might as well just play the video in. I'm going to look at sharpening in Lightroom. It's not the sort of details I'm talking about, but it's about bringing out the detail in our images, because you might have been tuning into this thinking I was talking about that kind of detail, which I'm not. But I am, because I'm going to do it in the sharpening bit there. And we've got some image feedback on your images as we go through. And then right at the end, I shall reveal this week's member photo of the week, which will be the new banner on the Facebook group for the coming week. So, details. Let's, well, actually, before I do, let me just have a look at the chat, because oh, darn, I forgot to update the link in my program, so you can't see the chat on the screen tonight. Sorry, folks. Might be able to fix that while you're watching the video later on. Never mind. Let's just go back to where we were. I'll have to tell you what's in the chat if you can't see it. Hello, Peter. Hope your internet lasts and that you can stay with us. Right, okay. Gary asking, are macro lenses significantly different to use and useful for detail photography? Well, we'll come on to that actually about macro lenses and detail, because there's a misunderstanding to do with detail photography that I want to clear up fairly early on this. And oh, last one on there. Hi, Amanda. Glad you could join us. Right, details, details, details. The devil is in the detail and all that. I think it's a bit of an overlooked topic when it comes to photography. As I was preparing for this, I had a flick through my reference books to see whether I could find any sections on detail photography. And it's not in there. Now, that might be because maybe I'm looking up under the wrong word, because what I mean by detail is not necessarily what everybody else means. But what I'm going to be talking about, I think, is important to our photography, and I think is something that is worth spending some time on. But let me define what I actually mean by details, first of all. And this goes on to Gary's question. A detail image is not a macro image per se. So don't get confused by thinking, oh, talking details, we're talking macro. We're not. A detail image can be a macro image, but it doesn't have to be. And a lot of the time it isn't. As you'll see with the examples that I show, they're definitely not macro shots. What do I mean by detail? Well, I mean a portion, a subset of a larger subject. That's what I mean by a detail. And you'll see with the examples that it becomes a bit more obvious as we go through what that's all about. So, for example, this image over my shoulder is a detail shot. It's a window in Rome. It's a subset of a larger scene, which is a building. So it's just one detail from a building. Definitely not a macro shot, and I was going to say I couldn't take it with a macro lens. I might actually, because I suspect I was probably around the 100mm zoom level when I took it, but it's not a macro shot at all, but it is a detail shot. So, why are details important? They're important because they enable us to see things which we may otherwise miss in photos. And sometimes this can be about putting together a series of images to enable somebody to see the subject properly. So let's have a look at this case study I've got, which is a stained glass window. And I think I've probably got the name spelt incorrectly here. But this is a stained glass window in a church in Stockport. It's based on the iconic The Light of the World painting by Holman Hunt. I'm not sure whether I've spelt his name correctly, so my apologies if I got that one wrong on there. But there's so much detail in there. I mean, have a good look at it. Look at the detail in it. Well, I think there's lots of different compositions in there, and I think possibly, even though you're looking at this image while I'm talking, and I'm padding slightly because I really do want to give you time to look at this image and to cast your eye around it, because I want to do a little bit of an experiment here. Because from that one image, which you could argue is a detail from a church, but that's the full image. What I'm talking about are the details from that shot. Now, these are all separate photos. So maybe the first thing that your eye went to when you were looking at the details of this shot was the face of Jesus on there. Maybe your eye was drawn to that because it's one of the brightest areas of the image, and the eye is always drawn to the bright parts of an image. Was that the first thing that you saw? Maybe on there. But did you see that the crown is actually two crowns? It's the kingly crown of Jesus intertwined with the crown of thorns from the crucifixion. Possibly something that you missed when looking at the whole image, but something that you can see now because we're just looking at one detail from it, one section of it. The main concept behind this image is it's all about Jesus saying, I stand at the door and knock. It's about Jesus knocking on the door of your life. So the hand is important, and we've got the hand there knocking with the knuckles. And it's interesting, it's knocking that way as opposed to knocking that way. It's a gentle knock, isn't it? Again, that comes out from the detail on there. The hand's significant to it. So photographing the detail helps us tell that story. And one other detail there, did you notice the mark of the nails in his palm? Probably not on the full image, but because we're looking at just one section of it, maybe you spotted it on there. And what about the lantern that he's holding, the light of the world, that part? Was your eye drawn to the bright blue in the lantern on there? But did you notice the candle just hidden behind the slats in there? Again, as we come in close, you can see more detail, and it helps you explore this single subject of this one stained glass, or as Gary's just corrected me on the thing, painted glass window. Yeah, there's certain bits of it are painted. I think it's probably a combination of both from memory, but we'll see. I'm not an expert on stained glass or even painted glass on there. But when we looked at it, and even that close-up of just the hand holding the lantern, did you spot the chain wrapped around Jesus' hand and the detail in there of how that's all put together, how it's wrapped firmly around the wrist and held in the fingers on it? So having those detail shots enable us to go through a journey on an image. So it's easier to do that by photographing each part of it separately, each of those details in there, to be able to see the whole thing, as it were, in more detail on there. Yes, I could have probably cropped in, but the challenge is to make the composition, and those compositions were all made in camera. Each section of that was a separate shot on there. So details, another one here, can sometimes tell the story far better than a full scene. So let's have a look at another little case study. This time it's cars in Havana and how details help us tell the story of the vehicles in Havana. As you probably know, the vehicles in Havana tend to be 1950s style. Some of them actually have modern engines in, but they're all 1950s Americana type cars. Chevrolets like this. So while I was there, I photographed a lot of the details on the cars, like the iconic tail fins on the Chevrolets and the tail lights on there, and that's sort of iconic of those cars. And immediately you see that, you think 1950s Americana cars. And again, the figurine on the front here, we've got this flying bird on there. I think is a Thunderbird. I'm not sure on that. With that shot, but again, the detail and the wing mirror just in shot there helps tell the story of what type of car it is, and the pink coming from it, and the I was going to say the radiator grille, the fender, if you're an American. Sorry to any Americans watching for the accent on there, but looking at the front, the badge on there, the grille, the number plate, it's all part of telling the story of it. Now, is that better than trying to photograph the cars? Well, the best I could do when I photographed those three cars, was that in a line. And I don't think that tells the story as well as just doing it through the details on there, because I couldn't get to a point where I could see them from the front. You could just about see the Chevrolet rear light on there, but it's tiny, whereas just going in and getting the individual details on there makes for a much better shot, and it's more interesting to the viewer done that way. So what else about details? Well, details can give us an alternative perspective, perhaps on something that we know really well, and photographing it just as a detail from it can help us see it in a new light. So here's a case study. I'm not going to name what it is, and see if you can, well, I know you'll know what it is as soon as I put it up on the screen. So there, I'm certain you can recognize the object, but how often do we see it from that point of view? That gives you a totally new perspective, because what I focused in on is one detail, the ponytail and the hieroglyphs on the back of the mask. And for anyone who hasn't worked it out yet, shame on you, then that's what it is. It's the death mask of King Tutankhamun in Cairo Museum. So the details help us see things in a new light. Details can sometimes be the only thing that we actually need to know exactly what we're looking at. Here's another case study. Not going to name it, because you'll know what it is as soon as I put it on the screen. If you're in the UK, this is iconic. You will recognise what it is from just this small detail of it. But it creates an interesting abstract, and it allows us to concentrate and to focus in as a viewer on how this structure is made, and the ribs on there, the wing, as it were, of, well, the Angel of the North in Gateshead on there. So just thinking about details as a way of telling that story. I'm sure you worked out what it was. Another thing about details, and why I encourage them, is because they can be used as flavour shots, either in travel guides or in larger presentations. So here's a case study from a trip to Jordan. Just detail from, again, something iconic. You almost certainly will recognise it. It's a detail from a well-known landmark, but it's only part of it. It's not what we normally see, but this is the sort of thing you might see in the margin of a travel book, a travel brochure on there. And it just adds a flavour to the location. I could put just in here, not for Jordan, but for other locations, as you'll see with the Cherbourg thing that I put in. It might just be basket of fruit, something like that, which gives you literally a flavour of the location. So yeah, this one, if you haven't worked it out, is the treasury in Jordan, in Petra in Jordan. And you can see now, it's the top section of it. Maybe I could have gone in closer. In fact, I have got closer bits, but I just chose that one section to show, because there's one quite interesting thing on there. Did you spot it? You probably did. The fact that the figure has been chipped away on it, which you possibly don't notice so much when you look at the larger vista of it, the larger view. And sometimes details are needed to help us remember particular things. And there are things which will get forgotten if we don't photograph them. And this is something I always mention when I'm talking about wedding photography, and how photographing the details are really, really important. Little things like the detail on the front of the wedding car and how the ribbons were attached, if there were ribbons attached to it. There's so much going on at a wedding that the bride and the groom often don't get the chance to see all these little bits and pieces, the detail on the front of the car. Yes, the bride's holding it all day, but the groom, if he's looking at the bouquet on his wedding day, there's something seriously going wrong. He'll be looking at his bride. And everybody's looking at the bride, not the bouquet. And think now to the last wedding that you attended. Can you remember what the bouquet looked like? The bouquet of flowers? So getting a shot of it helps everyone to remember that detail of the day that might have been forgotten. And the cake. Now, this is a really, really important one. A lot of work goes into producing wedding cakes. And what happens to them? Halfway through the day, somebody attacks it with a knife or a machete and cuts it into pieces. So get the photos of it. What were the figures on top? Sometimes the figures on top are edible. So that information is lost. And we've got the flipping yellow banner of death again. Oh, it's gone. I had changed those settings and it seems to have been doing a little bit better since I did. Anyway, let's carry on. The wedding cake, something that gets, oh, that was a spinny wheel of death as well, that gets lost. Sorry, the wedding cake is a detail that will get lost if somebody, particularly if the details are things that get eaten, and the figurines on there, they're often made out of icing on there. Right, the other thing to say about details is they can be a composition in their own right. So here's an example from a place called Septiil in Canada. Here's the full scene on there. I wonder if you can work out or spot what the detail is on the shot. What detail is there in there that would make for a good composition? Yeah, we got that message is still up there, just so that you can see, folks. That's what we're getting, this warning on the screen. I don't know what it is. I've reduced the rate. Right, okay, not sure what's going on at the moment. Right, okay, hopefully I'm back. I think the connection dropped for a short while in the middle of that. I know Gary's had some stuttering on there, and I got a message that OBS disconnected from YouTube. It's telling me it's reconnected now, so don't know. Right, okay, let's carry on. Right, did you spot the composition in there? Let me make sure. Yeah, there. That's what I think is an interesting little composition from it. It's a nice abstract shape on it. We've got circles, we've got triangles, we've got lines, we've got diagonals on there, and it's just a detail from that location. It's not a detail from the original shot, it's a shot in its own right. I photographed from closer into the church to get the shot, but what I'm saying is you can use details to create your own compositions. And sometimes details are all you need to tell the story. So here we go in Havana, one of my favorite detail shots. Back to Havana. It's just a detail of the wing mirror from a Chevrolet, but because that detail has the reflection as well, and yet you can still see the shape of the car, I think this tells the whole story in a detail. About the type of car, the look of it. You even get the hint of the streets within that detail. So sometimes the detail can be just so powerful. Right, okay, so I'm looking at the chat. My apologies for the problems we've been having. I wish I knew what the cause of it was. It's just not reproducible. The last 2 weeks we've had no trouble at all on there. So, right, let's give you a little bit of feedback on the images that I've received this week. I've only received images via email from one person this week. So I'm heading over. I'm just going to pick a couple of Gary's shots for this. These are all detail shots, and he did tell me where it is and I've forgotten. So if you just pop it in the chat so everyone else knows my incompetence again, unless it's actually in your metadata. No, it's not in there. Right, so lots of details. Is it Haddon Hall? Haddon Hall, I think it might be on there. And there's just a couple of things I want to just pick up on with these. Nice little detail shots. This one, which is the sort of chainmail over something. The only thing I would do with this is, I think this is one where it's probably worth trying to level it up a little bit. And I'm struggling to do it by rotating. So let's just reset that on there. And I'm just going to do it by using the transform. I'll see what auto makes of it. Oh, it doesn't like that at all. Won't do it that way. We'll do it guided. And basically we've got a line across there. And we've got a line. Yeah, it's not quite straight, but something like that. And we've got probably a line down there, and I think that's the other line on it, just to try and straighten it up a little bit on there. With that, the guide's back. So there's that I would do. I think it's a nice set here. I really like this one of the graffiti basically on the stained glass window, coming from 1764 by the looks of it down there on that. And it basically, as a full set here, Gary, I think the whole lot works well to sort of just give a feel for it. I think they're shots that would fit really nicely in a presentation about the whole of Haddon Hall and how the details work. Yeah, not sure that one's as sharp as some of your work in there. I think I've seen sharper from you, Gary, on that one. Composition's not bad. I like the square composition on it. I like this one. I do particularly like this. How it's basically those shapes just bringing you in to the middle, the framing on it, the diagonals, and what have we got right in the middle? A small little plant. Now, I'm just going to have a look at the settings on this, because 100th of a second, f4, that should be sharper. I don't know whether it's a focusing thing, but that doesn't look quite as sharp as I would expect, Gary. Maybe you weren't focusing on that, which is very clearly that's the thing that the eye's going to on there. I might be tempted just to clone out that bit, so I might just do something like that with it. Get it on there, just to get rid of the white on there from drawing the eye, and maybe just a little bit over there, and I need to find that edge. There we go. So I would tend to do something like that on there. And I think that works better as a gem. So let's have a look at the others. Any others I want to comment about on here? Yeah, the air brick. There's a saying, Gary, and I think you've probably heard me say this one before, that whenever you present a selection, people will always judge you on the worst image in the set. This is it for this set. I don't think this one particularly adds anything to it. It's interesting to document it, and it would be useful for anyone who's doing something on the architecture of buildings of that period. But as a standalone image, I don't think it works on that one. So, what else? I think that's it. I think I'm going to leave it at that on there, and I'll have a look at the chat. Yeah. Coming through. Yeah, Haddon Hall. Oh, looking at the chat, a couple of things in here. Gary says the wing mirror shot is fantastic. Thank you, Gary. Right. The glass in the window was imported from Venice. Interesting. Yeah, I was right. I did remember it right. It was Haddon Hall on there. So, right, let's carry on to this. And right, this is the, oh no, right, okay. I thought I was going to playing the video in at this point. Clearly not. I'm doing the tutorial. My slides are not in the order I remember writing them. Never mind. That's easy enough. I have everything prepared. Trust me. For once, I am actually ready for doing this. Right, there we go. And right, so back into Lightroom, and I want to look at sharpening and just do a little tutorial on how to sharpen in Lightroom. Now, I know not everybody uses Lightroom, so I'll keep this very brief. Here's the image I'm going to use, which is it's a photograph of a canvas print of one of my photographs. But I'm going to concentrate on the color checker passport on here as being the item we're going to look at. So I'm going to the develop module. I'm going to go full screen so you can see what's going on. And this is the section I want you to look at. I'm hoping this works over video on here. So let's go to the Detail tab. And I'm just going to reset everything under sharpening on there. And let's just talk through the 4 different sliders in sharpening. And I want you to look at the scale on here to see what's going on, and also look at the detail in the rope down here and the detail in the texture of the canvas. Those are the items to look at as we go through this. So we have 4 sliders, and more or less for once, Lightroom have got the sliders in the right order. Quite often I would say you go through the sliders from bottom to top. This time it is top to bottom. And the amount is the amount of sharpening that we are going to apply. Now, what does that actually mean? Well, the way sharpening works is looks for edges within an image, and then when it's found an edge, it adds light and dark to it to make that edge look more distinct. So it darkens one side and lightens the other to make the edge really stand out. That's how sharpening works. It doesn't actually create detail, it's an optical illusion. So what the amount slider does, it controls the amount of light and dark that is added to those edges. how dark does it put it, how light does it bring it to make that edge work. And to help us choose the right setting on there, if we go back to full screen, if I hold down the Alt key as I move the slider, you can see it does it in black and white. You can see when it's all the way down there versus up there, you can see how it's brought out that detail. Now, we can see on the scale here, it looks so much clearer and sharper. That's because we're working on the black and white area. But you can also see, if you look up here, we're starting to get halos around the squares. So we want to try and find a point where it doesn't give us too much halo. So I'm going to start round about midpoint there. Now it has brought out some of the detail in the texture of the canvas. Now I might not want that, but we can deal with that later. So the amount is the amount, how dark those edges go. The radius, having found an edge, that tells Lightroom how far out that light and dark should go. So again, I'm holding the Alt key, and you can see the effect here. Can you see on the bottom rightmost square how it's adding that black and white edge to it, which doesn't exist in colour on that, because it's a white square. It's just adding that to try and make it appear sharp. And the idea here is we want to bring this up as high as we can without getting the halos on there. So I think up to about there. Now the detail slider, the next one down, what that does is, having said how dark or how light we want to add to the edges and how far out from the edge it applies that, the detail slider tells Lightroom how hard it searches for edges. Again, hold the Alt and see. Right, it says I'm reconnected now, finally. Right, I've just, no, that's something completely different. It's telling me that, right, okay, it's telling me the chat's now reconnected again. But it's also telling me I have lost most of my viewers by the looks of it, saying I've only got 8 current viewers. Right, I'll go back to the tutorial and carry on, and if necessary, I'll post the recording later on this. So, right. Right, okay, we're back. Right, okay, so, where was I? Yeah. What I was saying in here, right, I'm going to recap very slightly because I don't know at what point it all disconnected and you were unable to listen. So forgive me if you're hearing this twice. The detail slider, again, if I hold the Alt key down, what that does is it tells Lightroom how hard to search for these edges all the way up, and it's actually finding the detail in the canvas, the texture of the canvas, and sharpening that. All the way down, it's not finding it, but nor is it finding much of the detail in the rope. So we probably want somewhere in between, which is going to be about here, I would guess. But that's brought back detail, it's sharpening detail in the canvas that I don't want. How do we deal with that? Well, we deal with it using the fourth slider, which is the masking slider. Again, hold the Alt key down. White means that part of the image is going to be sharpened. If I bring it up, and we can see now that I can keep bringing this up until I lose the section with the canvas. So now I've got to this point where actually it's going to sharpen the rope, it's going to sharpen the card, but not sharpen the detail on the canvas. So we get a nice smooth canvas, we get the detail in the rope, and we get a nice sharp looking section on the card on there. So that is how you sharpen. Let's look at the before and after. I can toggle it on and off without sharpening, with sharpening. Again, look at the scale there. Look at the rope down here as without, with. You can see this has got a lot sharper, but looking at the texture within the canvas, that doesn't change at all, toggling it on and off. So I hope that little mini tutorial was helpful to you with this. So let's get back to the presentation. Let me get back to chat and see what's going on in there, and whether you're all still with me. Right, okay, some of you are still here. Thank you. Right, let's have a look at the chat on there. That's it. Let's move on over to here. Right, okay, very briefly, I want to just say thank you to those of you who have sponsored my live stream by buying me a cuppa. And thank you to everyone who's done that. If you want to say thank you financially, find it helpful, there's a link down below which says buymeatea.com/Ian Butty. It's basically buymeacoffee.com, which is what YouTubers use. You can just buy me a drink just to say thank you on there. And each week I say a special thanks to someone by putting their name on the mug. And tonight it's to Bob Tovey. Thanks for tonight's cuppa, Bob. Really appreciate it. So moving along, we've got, I want to play in a video. I'm aware I'm going to go over tonight on time, largely because I keep getting distracted by things cutting out. Let me play the video in and then we'll carry on. In this video, I'm in Cherbourg in France, and I'm going to talk a little bit about the importance of capturing details when doing travel photography. Hello, today I'm in Place General de Gaulle in Cherbourg in France, and I've come into this square, and what immediately struck me about it was the possibilities here for photographing details. The obvious thing is the fountain that's behind me, but there's lots of other things which will open up some great possibilities for details. I'm going to take the camera off tripod and show you some of the things which I think will make great shots. Well, let's start off with the obvious, which is of course the fountain here. And the natural thing when you photograph a fountain would be to capture the whole thing. Now that's important, but think about the details that are on there, particularly the little carvings on the side of it. And what about the top section just by itself? That will make for some great detail shots. Over on the other side of the square, we've got some shops. And if we look over here, you can see there's a shop selling fruit and veg, apples actually. And I think there's some great possibilities for detail shots there. Next, think about the buildings and the windows. Windows by themselves are great flavour shots for travel photography, just to sort of give a feel for the location where you're at. So there's some good possibilities over there. As we move round along the square past the fountain, here's perhaps one of the most interesting locations for details. It's the old theatre. And you can see there's lots of carvings on there. So as we zoom in on that, there's lots of potential there for detail shots. Think about details of the figurines carved onto the building, or how about the busts way above near the flagpole. As we carry on around the square, we've got things like, of course, nameplates. In this case, Place General de Gaulle. And these make great flavour shots as well. So why are detail shots so important when doing travel photography? Well, if you think about travel guides, in the margins there's quite often just these little, what I call them flavour shots of a location, and the details often tell you so much more about a place than the large vistas. Not only that, if you're putting together a slideshow of your images or showing images of a trip, it's nicer for the viewer to see a whole range of travel images, the big vistas of the whole square. Important as they are, then the little flavour shots allow the viewer to have the experience of coming in close and seeing different parts of a scene. You as a traveller, when you go to a location, you see the whole scene and then you go in and perhaps look at the details, so capture those as well. I'm going to go off now and see what detail shots I can create around the square here. So thanks for watching this. Right, okay, that's the point I wanted to leave the video. If you want to see the remainder of it, it's over on my channel, my travel channel, and you'll find it in there, along with lots of other sort of helpful little videos and travel logs on there. Right, now, have I fixed the problem with chat? Yes, I have, so we've got them up on there. And right, Gary has said that regarding the sharpening, Topaz have an AI sharpening one, which does it and does really good jobs on there. And there's a 30-day trial, so if that's of interest to you, go and download that, try it out, see whether it's worth paying the bucks on there. So we've got that right, and back to this. Right, yes, feedback on the images which are posted to the Facebook group this week. Now, just to reiterate, I give preference to images which are sent to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk. So for next week, please send me some images. I love looking at Gary's images, but I would like to look at somebody else's as well in that section. I mean, Gary does produce some fantastic stuff, but I want to see somebody else's as well. That's as well, Gary, not to say you can still send me some, please. Right, okay, let's head back over to Lightroom, and by next week I should have my fancy little device for doing all this switching automatically for me. I believe it's due to arrive in the next day or so. So here we are. Right, these were all images submitted to the Facebook group. I'm not going to go through them all in detail, you'll be pleased to hear. I just want to comment about a few of them. This one, I'm going to have to do it from Petra. Lovely shot of poppies, a fantastic worm's eye view image of it, looking up, which I really like on there. And although it's a grey sky, that greyness offsets all the other colours. It really still works with it. So well done, Petra. I've got to give a shout out to this pair of images from John Barton, because this station, Hadlow Road, on the Wirral, and he did the colour version and a black and white version. That's where my wife and I had all our wedding photos taken there. So it has a special place, right? And in fact, we have a photograph of everybody at that location over our fireplace at home. I think the black and white image works best on this, although the vignetting is perhaps a tad heavy at the bottom, and I'd like to see a little bit of it up at the top with that. But the black and white conversion's generally quite good, although you are losing a little bit of detail in the shadows with it, John. Another one from Petra. This one I think needs straightening up, so it's going to develop. and very quickly do a straighten on it, transform, auto, and will it do it on auto? No, it won't. Let's go guided then, and I'll just draw in along there, and across there, and from there to there. That should now be nice and straight. So I can then, yeah, I'd go with that. So nice detail shot, Petra. I like the fact that it's side lit, so we can see the carving on there. Works nicely. This one from Bob. He submitted it as negative. Say it's negative space, Bob, as I said on the group. I don't know whether it's Facebook that's responsible. We can see we've got some clipping on there. I would try and just preserve those highlights with that sort of image. Interesting shot. I like the texture in the clouds on there. From Donata, the cruise ship, reflection in a window of people looking overboard. Again, nice idea. Brings back memories of being on board ships for me on there. Couple of shots from Gary. He's presented a whole series of these millstones and the story behind how the almost literally overnight the bottom fell out of the market and they all got abandoned there. I think this particular one, I can't show all of them, but this particular one I think is my favourite because we've got a rule of thirds going on, we've got the millstone in the foreground, the detail in there, and I think that one just works. But I also think that the whole set, along with that write-up that you did about the little bit of history, would work great as a little mini slideshow. And I very nearly produced it to go in the show tonight, and I just ran out of time because I've been rather busy over the last few days because I've got an audition tomorrow to do with lecturing on cruise ships. I can say no more at this stage, but I've had to do a fair bit of preparation for it during the week. Peter, nice detail shot. Like the use of negative space on there. Because I've only got the Facebook one, I can't tell whether it's tack sharp. I suspect it's not, and I suspect it would warrant a slightly deeper depth of field on it as well, and still be able to keep this blurry background on there. But nice set of tones in there with it. Robin, I like this shot. Love the colours. Blue and yellow always work well together. They're opposites on the colour wheel, which means they work well. And the whole thing, and that almost square crop for it really adds to it, along with the diagonal composition with it on there. John, nice shot of the gargoyle. And he was talking about the using negative space. Now, even though this is negative space, I would still watch these angles on here. I think they just need to be sort of straightened up a little bit on there. So they are actually vertical with it. And that still works with that. That would also work as probably as a nice black and white shot. So you could do something like that with it. Maybe add a touch more on the contrast. Bring the exposure very slightly, and then using one of my presets, give it a little bit, just a hint of a vignette on there. Would work like that. How are we doing? Oh, I have still got 2 more to do. John, another one with the clock. This bright area is drawing the eye on this. So I would be bold with a shot like this, and I would go down and I'd actually do something a little bit more dramatic with the crop, I'd bring the crop right in with it to something like that. And that still works. And you see what I've done? I've just clipped top, bottom and left to give it a balance on there. And what that's done with the shot is it's given us this diagonal leading line of the figure. It's put it on a rule of thirds line. It's given us some negative space. Don't like the little bit of light through there. So what I would do with that is I might just try using an adjustment brush and set. Right, I don't know whether you can still hear me or not. I'm just going to carry on. It's all I can do. Maybe just bring the exposure down very slightly. I really just want to get the highlights down on there. So before, after, I've just brought it down a fraction on there so it's less drawing the eye. I might even get away with doing something like that, which I don't like doing because it's affecting the real thing. Yeah, no, I do that. That's what I do with it. And finally, Bernard on here. Nice reflections with the coins. Called it double your money. The only thing I would watch on here, maybe just a hint of, maybe it's the contrast it needs on it. I don't know. Vibrance, bring the colour into it. I'm trying to work out why these look odd. No, it's not that. There's something about the colour on this that I can't quite get right. I think we can just bring it up a little bit. Mix of lights on it? I don't know. There's something odd about the colour with it, and I can't quite work out what it is on that one. Exposure up. There's something weird with it. Definitely something weird. Contrast. Maybe it's the contrast and the clarity I need. Something like that. No, I can't quite get it right on there. So I hope you're still with me, folks, on here. It's a little bit frustrating what's going on tonight. Let's have a look at the chat before we finish. On there. Right, yeah, I'm glad that some of you are still here. Right, thank you, folks, on that. Let's move on. Yep. Member photo of the week. So, who's it going to be this week? This week, the member photo is the one I was raving about as I was giving the feedback, by Petra Hotratic. Sorry, Petra, I'm struggling to pronounce your surname on there, but I think it's a cracking shot, and I've given the reasons as I was doing the feedback. And this is what it will look like as the banner for the week. I will change it very shortly on there, and please keep submitting, folks, and that your images will be in there for in the pool for next week. Will yours be the thing? So final look at the live chat. Once again, my apologies for the technical problems. I'll have a look into that as we close. Next Sunday, our theme, well, it's two themes really. Next Sunday is a full moon. I don't know whether it's going to be a clear night, but I thought as it's a full moon, I'll do a short section on how to shoot the moon. And I'm going to look at the new challenge that's going to start in April. And I can tell you now what the challenge is called. This is in connection with the Facebook group. So if you're not a member of the Facebook group, do join it. The challenge is going to be a before and after challenge. A chance to earn prize points, and what the prize points make? well, they make prize points really, actually. No, you can cash them in for some one-to-one tuition and things like that with them. So that's next week. If you've got any moon photos, please post them to feedback@ians-studio.co.uk or to the Facebook group, and I can give feedback on them. What did you think of the new layout for the PowerPoint slides, the grey box behind me? Changed it because I want to make the slides so that I can use them in presentations, and also I wanted to be able to deal with this problem where the TARDIS had been getting in the way of some of the text on there. But anyway, let me know what you think. Sorry about the problems, and until next time, folks, thanks for watching. And until we talk again, please keep making great photos. Bye for now. Right, this is where I do the alternative ending for when this gets cut down. And I really must update this slide. Right, okay. You've just been watching the cut down version of Ian's Studio Live. The full version is now in my Academy. If you want to join the Academy, the details are over my shoulder. They're also down below, and it only costs £6 a month or £60 a year, and you get full live streams. You get lots and lots of resources like inspiration sheets. There's an archive of talk-throughs on images of why they work, how they work. We've got video tuition that's exclusive in there. There's all sorts of things hidden in there, and I will be adding more to it in the near future. So thanks for watching this. See you next time, and until then, keep making great images. Bye for now.